This is the Louie T Network.
I'm ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Louie? Yeah.
Overtime! So we head to overtime.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Sunday Night Football Overtime. Eagles riding a 9-game winning streak, coming in with the NFL's best mark at 10-1, taking on the Seattle Seahawks, coming into the game at 7-4, playing good football, but big test for the Seattle Seahawks. I've talked a number of times about this Seahawks team this year and how I feel they're going to win their division. And I still think they're going to win their division. And I've said that. I've never wavered off the fact that I believe the Seattle Seahawks are going to win the NFC West. I think they've got one more run in them. And I think this is the year that they're going to hold on to the division one last time. And then you can see that the Rams aren't playing around. They won again today, and they're a young upstart football team. And they're going to have many divisional crowns in their future. But I think the Seahawks have one more year of holding off the young boys from coming to take what they think is theirs. So tonight was one of those nights where they proved we're not playing around. We still think we can win this division. And I've talked about in the AFC that there are a couple of teams that could throw a wrench in the foregone conclusion that is Patriots-Steelers AFC Championship game. I said there are a couple of dangerous teams in the AFC, in Jacksonville and Baltimore. Now, you could throw the Chargers in the mix, but they're not a lock to make the playoffs. I think Baltimore and Jacksonville are two locks to make the playoffs in the AFC. So I don't want to throw the Chargers in there yet, but they're another team because of the way they play defense and the fact that they can get after the quarterback. They could wreck some things. But they're a little sketchy to me just because you don't know what Chargers team is going to show up week in, week out. The Baltimore Ravens are scary because, A, they've been there many times before. So no moment is too big for that football team. They've been there. They've done that. They know what to expect. All right. The divisional round is the same as the championship game for them. They've been there a million times. They understand what they have to do to get the job done. So no moment is too big for them, and they play defense and they can run the football. Those things travel wherever you go. Same can be said for Jacksonville. The only difference is they don't have the experience. They've never been in a big game of any magnitude when you're talking playoffs, wild card, divisional round, championship game, none of that. They have no experience, so that's going to come back to haunt them. And oh, by the way, Blake Bortles is their quarterback. And say what you want about Joe Flacco. You make all the jokes you want. Put Joe Flacco in the playoffs, and it's a problem, okay? Now, with this Seahawks team, I've talked about this. I think they're going to win the division. I haven't wavered off of that. And I'll take it a step further. They're still a dangerous team. You still don't want to go to Seattle for a first-round playoff game. You don't want to go to Seattle for a second-round playoff game. You don't want to go to Seattle, period, okay? So this is a dangerous team in the Seattle Seahawks. And they still got a lot to play for. Believe it or not, because if the Philadelphia Eagles lose next week and the Minnesota Vikings have a tough one next week on the road, I want to say that one might be at home. But it's against Carolina. Home, away, it doesn't matter. The Vikings don't seem to care whether the game's at home or on the road these days. They seem to be able to win wherever they go. That being said, they could easily lose to Carolina. You never know what Carolina football team is going to show up. So I said all of that to say this. If they look up at the standings next week, and let's say Seattle wins next week, and they get to 9-3, and they look up and they see the Eagles, or 9-4, excuse me, and they look up and they see the Eagles at 10-3, and they see Minnesota at 10-3, they're thinking to themselves, why can't we get the number one seed in the NFC? It's not out of the realm of possibility, all right? Not out of the realm of possibility at all. And so while you're looking around at some things, look, don't count this Seahawks team out. Now, that's very far-fetched. That's something that I don't think is going to happen. I don't see them running the table and having the Vikings and both Eagles lose 2 more games just to allow them to have a shot. And then I think if you're talking tiebreakers, I don't know if they would win a tiebreaker necessarily versus the Minnesota Vikings. They would win it, obviously, because they won the head-to-head matchup with Philadelphia, but that's no here nor there. Got to win your division first before we can start talking crazy, right? But in any event, I've said it all along, this is a dangerous Seahawks football team because, much like I said with the Ravens, they're battle-tested. They've been here before. They know what to expect. They've got a quarterback that's playing at an MVP-like level. We'll talk about that a little bit later on because I think that's a point that has been undersold this season. And I still think Carson Wentz is your MVP this season. Despite the incredible football Russell Wilson is playing, I still think it's a foregone conclusion that Wentz is going to win the MVP just because he's been the more noticeable entity this season. We've seen him on primetime a ton of times this year. He's been ridiculous in those primetime matchups. He's lit it up just about every time. This has probably been the first time he hasn't made some ridiculous bone or jaw-dropping, just absolutely remarkable game-changing play. And he still had a crazy throw to Aguilar down the field, damn near on one knee. So he seems to make these types of plays that just has you in awe. And he didn't necessarily do that a ton of times tonight, but he still made some plays tonight. Did have a back-breaking fumble. We'll talk about all of that stuff, but he's going to win the MVP, I think. Barring any kind of catastrophic finish to the season where the bottom falls out of the Eagles season, I just see Carson Wentz being the MVP. But Russell Wilson is giving it a run. He's outstanding. This is a battle-tested football team. Despite not having the Legion of Boom fully intact, to me, as long as you have Earl Thomas, you're fine back there in the secondary. I know everybody loves Dick Sherman and, what are they going to look? They'll be fine without Dick Sherman. I told you that when he got injured. Yeah, it's a loss, and you don't want to see your best corner go down. They'll survive. Okay, Cam Chancellor, they've played without him before. Earl Thomas is the car the engine that makes that secondary go. All right, if you want to be honest, as long as they've got Earl Thomas and Bobby Wagner on defense, they're just fine. They'll figure it out. And now they're starting to get pass rush with Frank Clark. And I think Sheldon Richardson is another one of those under-the-radar acquisitions that we didn't talk about a lot. And I think both teams won that trade, to be honest, because Curse is balling for the Jets and Sheldon Richardson is lighting it up for the Seahawks. I think he's found a nice home in Seattle. And so he's playing outstanding football. Of course, Michael Bennett, they're just fine defensively. And I tried to convey that message. Everyone wanted to talk about the guys that weren't playing. I'm like, what about the guys that are playing? They're pretty damn good too. And so Seattle is battle-tested. They've got a defense, and they've got a quarterback. They're scary, okay? And so I look around, and I talked about this with Eagles fans because Eagles fans, obviously you're happy your team's 10-1 coming into this game, and so you're starting to look at the big picture. Man, we could win the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to talk reckless when you've played 11 games and you won 10 of them. But the thing I keep pointing to is you haven't been here. Your team is young. You've got a young nucleus. You've got a left tackle that scares the hell out of me that I don't trust. Okay, I remember after Vaitai had to come in against the Redskins the night that Jason Peters went down, and I talked to a Eagles fan, my man Cloud, said, hey, I thought Vaitai was pretty good tonight. I'm like, he was okay. But you're going up against a Redskins defense that they don't bolster the best pass rushers. You don't want Vaitai at left tackle. Maybe you kick him over to right and switch Lane Johnson over to left, but maybe Lane Johnson isn't as good at left tackle because he's one of the best right tackles in all of football. You move him from right to left, and then maybe he's not the same guy. Maybe you still have problems with Vaitai at right tackle. Might as well just leave Lane Johnson where he is and put Vaitai in at left tackle. I'm not comfortable. Either way, I'm not comfortable with Big V against some of the upper echelon pass rushers that this league has to offer. I mean, you put him in front of Everson Griffin against the Minnesota Vikings or Daniil Hunter, either one of their pass rushers, that could be a problem in the playoffs against the Minnesota Vikings. You put him up against the Falcons pass rushers, whether it's Tack McKinley or it's Vic Beasley or it's Adrian Claiborne, all of a sudden Adrian Claiborne starting to become a force out there, that could be a problem, okay? Just looking around the NFC, I mean, hell, even against the Cowboys, the next time you play them, that could be a problem against DeMarcus Lawrence and all the guys that they have that can get to the quarterback out there for the Cowboys. And so, look, bottom line is that's a problem for me. And number two, I still think that secondary in Philadelphia isn't that great. You know how I feel about their secondary. But more importantly, forget about all of that because I think their front seven, or at least the front four, I don't want to put the linebackers into this mix. The front four is just lethal. And I saw Timmy Jernigan go down. I think he's okay. Saw him walk off the field. I don't remember if he came back in the game or not. He looks like he'll be fine. But in any event, that lack of experience scares me. Because you're going to have more games like this one tonight where you got to go on the road. And maybe you don't have to go on the road because you've been so good this season. You'd hate to see all of the equity you've built up this year by being so good for so long be blown up in the final month of the season. You'd hate to see that happen. You can't have many more games like this where you score 10 points. The defense is okay, but it's not great. The offense kind of sputters. You don't make plays. You got turnovers. You miss opportunities like the deep ball. These are things you can't have happen against a good team. Next week, same thing. On the road, Rams, they're good. They can score. You're going up against a coordinator that knows you well in Sean McVay. He's been coaching against the Eagles for the last 4 years. He knows the Eagles in and out. He's going to be very prepared to put up 30 next week. And if the Eagles aren't careful, and I think they can put up 30 next week against this Eagles defense that I'm not all that impressed about. So all of a sudden, a 9-game winning streak can turn into a 2-game skid quickly. And then everybody's asking, are the Eagles for real? Because remember, we had this discussion. Eagles haven't played anybody. Eagles been beating up on the little sisters of the poor, beating up on the Bears and the Niners and the Cardinals and those types of teams. Cowboys without Zeke Elliott. They've had their way with a bunch of bum teams. And so, Denver Broncos, we're looking around and saying, hey, this resume isn't that great. If this were the BCS, I don't know if you're ranked number 1. More like maybe number 5 or 6 in the country because this isn't a respectable list of teams you've beat up. But you've kicked ass. And that's what was important to me. It's not like you were eking by a field goal versus these bad. You were destroying these teams. And that's what you do. You can't help who they put in front of you. All you can do is go out and destroy them. And that's what you've done. So I respected what you were doing. But I said, we're going to find out a lot. And I thought you were going to win tonight. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and act as if I thought the Eagles were going to lose tonight. Because I thought they were going to win this game. Because Carson Wentz had been to Seattle before. He went last year. And they were in that game for 3 quarters, and then they self-destructed in the 4th quarter. And I said, he knows what it's going to take. He's been in this environment. But it's a whole nother animal. I keep talking to people about this. When Seattle's at home on primetime television, totally different animal. That's why I was so impressed with the Falcons going in there a couple of weeks ago on a Monday night and winning, because it's just hard to do. They're so good at home on primetime. The atmosphere is electric. It's just so tough to go there and win. But I thought the Eagles could do it. But then when you haven't played anybody of note, and really, you haven't played anybody good on the road, because maybe you could argue the Redskins were a formidable opponent. I don't know about that. But you haven't played anybody good on the road since the Carolina game. How long ago was that? Was that in November? Was that in October? I don't know. It's been a while though. Bottom line was, I wanted to see how you handled the environment, how you handled this type of game and this type of opponent. It's a good football team in Seattle. And I wasn't impressed with what I saw, but I wasn't that discouraged either. You take away the Wentz fumble, totally different ball game. That pitch by Russell Wilson, which I thought was a great play, but the replay clearly shows that football, when he caught it, was forward. And so you take that play away. That was a 3rd down. That's going to end up being a 4th down. That's a loss of down there. They're going to have to punt the football. You take away that Wentz fumble going in for a score, it's a different ball game. Totally different ball game. But you can't take those plays away. You did make those mistakes. Your coach didn't challenge that play because he had already gotten burned challenging something that he probably shouldn't have challenged. Because guess what? It was 4th and inches and you were going to go for it anyway. And I get it. If it's a 1st down, then you don't have to worry about the thought and the potential for you to not get it on 4th and inches. I get it. But you were going to go for it regardless. So why don't you just quarterback sneak it like you ultimately did and pick up the 1st down and save your little challenge, save your little timeout, and not have to worry about it. And maybe later on in the game when you were supposed to challenge, you wouldn't have been as gun shy. That's just a thought. But in any event, I'm anxious. Now that we've seen this Eagles team not perform at their best on the road against a good opponent, I'm just as eager to see what they do next week on the road against an equally as tough opponent in the Rams. Now I'm dying to see what they do there because now you're no longer on a 9-game winning streak. Now you no longer have all the momentum. Now you're no longer the talk of the league. Now, not saying you're going to be an underdog, but you may be an underdog. You may not be favored next week on the road versus the Rams. That's a possibility. So now, no one's saying Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. They're saying, hey, I don't know. Now I want to see how the Eagles fare when everyone's not singing their praises. When everybody's not saying, oh, Eagles, tough team. Oh, my God, Carson Wentz, MVP. What you going to do? That D-line, ridiculous. They're blowing teams out. No, well, they just got their ass whooped tonight. And look, that 14-point deficit is a lot closer than the score actually indicates. But it felt like an ass whooping. Not going to lie to you. And when you're used to beating up teams and winning 31-3 every week and destroying teams, you lose by 14, feels like a big deficit, feels like a big loss for a team that hasn't lost since week 2. So it's been a while. But I'm just as anxious to see the Eagles in action next week now on the heels of this loss because I want to see how they bounce back. This is going to tell me a lot about it. Do they have championship mettle? Are they ready? Because guess what? You don't get any do-overs in the playoffs. It's one and done. You win or you go home. So I'm anxious to see. And you've worked too hard this season. You've built up too much equity to allow your season to go to hell in a handbasket late in the year because it'd be a shame if you went from the number 1 seed to the number 3 or 4 seed after starting off, because it's possible. Lose to the Rams next week, and all of a sudden the Rams, not the Eagles, are the 2 seed, and you're now the 3 seed. And oh, by the way, Seattle's right there knocking on the door saying, hey, if the Rams don't get the division, we'll take it, and we'll take that 2 seed too while we're there, and you'll still be the 3 seed. So I'm looking around and I'm saying, hey, man, be careful. Be careful because these boys not playing around, man. It's not a game. It is not a game. And Seahawks, they right there. Rams, they got you next week. They right there. Vikings, those boys. It may never be pretty in Minnesota, but those boys get results. And oh, by the way, in case you don't know, the Saints are sitting there at 9-3, so you could end up being a 4 seed if you're not careful. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So it could all fall apart for you. But guess what? Next week you go on the road and beat the Rams and everything is just A-okay. All right? Now we're not talking about the Rams taking the 2 seed or potentially the 1 seed. We're not talking about the Eagles falling to the 3 seed, potentially the 4 seed. We're not talking about any of that. Win next week. And all of this is forgotten. Lose next week, and oh boy, shit's getting real in Philly. So we'll see what happens. But of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this program. Lots to discuss tonight. This was a fascinating game just because of all the different storylines. 2 MVP candidates battling one another, facing off. How are the Eagles going to fare in a tough environment against the first good quality opponent they've seen in over a month? Seahawks, are you for real? Everyone's leaving you for dead. I think you're going to win the division. I've said that a million times this year. Haven't moved. And I said, look, and I told my dad and my sister, had the pleasure of watching football with them today. It was a blast. And I said, if Seattle's serious about winning the division, which I think they are, they got to beat Philadelphia tonight. And I didn't think they were going to do it. But it contradicted what I said because I said, I really think they're going to win the division. And I've said it all season, but I'm like, Philly's just so damn good. But something's got to give. And it was the Eagles tonight. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting that subscribe button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. I've got a number of social media platforms. They're all scrolling there with the exception of Instagram. All of the links to those social media platforms, which will keep you in tune to what's going on here on this channel, down in the link of the description of this video and every single video that I do. Also, if you want to donate to this channel, in front of you, which will help you donate down in the description as well. So let's talk about the winners in this game. The all of a sudden now very dangerous Seattle Seahawks at 8-4 after the win over the Eagles. This is a team that they're getting a semblance of a run game. Mike Davis looking good. the South Carolina product, getting an opportunity, and this is like the 5th or 6th time they've had a different starter this year. It started out with Chris Carson. It moved on to Rawls. We've seen the Notre Dame product, C.J. Prosise, get an opportunity. A lot of injuries with those guys. J.D. McKissic, I told you, I think he's the X factor. Okay, you saw that nasty double move he gave to the linebacker Michael Kendricks out there out in space. This guy's a difference maker, man. And I've said it. I said it since the Colts game when he first burst onto the scene. And a lot of people have been saying, hey, look, man, I like J.D. McKissic back when he was with the Falcons. I've liked J.D. McKissic, but I don't think he was used this way in Atlanta. He's got a chance to be a difference maker. To me, he's an X factor, a guy that you got to get touches for. Out of the backfield, spread out as a receiver. He's technically a wide receiver now in Seattle. I don't give a damn. They treat him like a back. You saw they put a linebacker on him, but teams are going to go into the game and say, look, if J.D. McKissic's out of the backfield, we got to treat him like a receiver because that's what he is. His hands are legit. He makes plays. You can't afford to put a linebacker on him because if you do, what you saw happen to Michael Kendricks, what happened to your linebacker? I don't care how good he is in coverage. That guy is a mismatch. He's fast as hell, great hands, agile as you get in this league. So he's going to make guys miss, and he's going to put some moves on them, get in and out of breaks quickly. He's dangerous. You get him the football out of the backfield, out in space on tosses and pitches, jet sweeps. Anyway, you can get J.D. McKissic the football. I think he's an X factor. You saw that again tonight. But they're getting a semblance of a run game with Mike Davis, which is huge. They have to run the football in Seattle. If they don't run the football, they're not going to be as effective because Russell Wilson, one of the best play-action fake quarterbacks in this league, and you can't successfully run play-action fake or at least make teams respect it the way that you want them to because despite their inability to run for much of this season, they're still running play-action fake and they're still having success. So I don't want to say you can't run play-action fake without running the football because they've had some success with it, but it's that much more dangerous when the run game is accompanying a potent passing game, and that's what you get with Russell Wilson. If they can run the football, that play-action fake becomes deadly. And they ran it very effectively tonight with Davis. They got him the football out in space. There was a nice scramble by Wilson and then finding Davis wide open, and he was able to rumble for about 35 yards or so. So it's those types of plays that loosens up the defense. And so I thought that I looked at an offense with Dwayne Brown at left tackle, Russell Wilson, he's still running around, being Houdini, creating things off schedule, but he's a lot more comfortable standing tall in the pocket because he can rely on his left tackle. Now, there's still holes on that offensive line, guys that don't necessarily win one-on-one matchups all the time, but make no mistake about it, Dwayne Brown is a huge boost to this offense. And you look at what this Seahawks offense looks like now, and they're starting to come together. They're making plays. Guys are stepping up. I think P. Rich is a difference maker, and he's playing well in this contract year. And then you got Doug Baldwin out there. I think the tight end position, and I've always been a fan of Nick Van Nett. I've been waiting for this guy to show up. Now, all of a sudden, you got a three-headed monster at the tight end position with Van Nett, Luke Wilson, and Jimmy Graham, who is starting to make plays in the passing game now. All of a sudden, he's turned into a TD monster and machine, which is exactly what you brought him from New Orleans to do. And it's funny because, if I'm not mistaken, he's either got a year left or this is the last year of that deal. And now, all of a sudden, he's a guy that you can't go without in that offense because of his presence in the red zone. He's catching so many touchdowns. He's a problem now in the red zone is Jimmy Graham. And so now you got Nick Van Nett, you've got Graham, you've got Baldwin, you've got Richardson, you've got McKissic. All of a sudden now there are weapons everywhere for this Seahawks offense. And the guy pulling the strings, the maestro of it all, Russell Wilson, is as slippery as it gets in this league. If Wentz is 1A, Russell Wilson is 1B. If Wentz is 2, Wilson is 1. It doesn't get much slipperier than these two quarterbacks. And Wilson showed you again tonight why he's just a tough guy to bring down. The pitch play was huge, even though it looked like he might have been a 4 lateral. Thought it was incredible. You know, the presence of mind to know I've got a teammate behind me that I can pitch it to and have him pick up an additional 15, 20 yards. That's outstanding football. That's smart football. It's heady football. It's what we've come to expect from Russell Wilson. So the offense to me tonight if they can do this moving forward, if they can take this and make a carbon copy of it week after week after week, they're going to be a dangerous team moving forward and do what I think they are going to do, which is win the division and be a dangerous team come playoff time, or whether they're a 2 seed or a 3 seed. I don't know what the future holds for Seattle, but I can tell you this much. If they get home field advantage, if they get a 2 seed and the only place that they've got to go is, say, Minnesota or Philadelphia, you're talking about a dangerous team. You're talking about a dangerous team that can do some damage once they get to the postseason. So you go to their defense, and I kind of talked about it and touched on it at the beginning of the program at the top of the show. But just to reiterate, it's a dangerous defense. They're battle-tested. They've got a ton of talent up front with Bennett and Richardson. I really love what Jaron Reed is starting to do. They've got a young kid out of Maryland and Jefferson who's starting to flash. There's so much talent there. You got the kid out of North Carolina that's playing some good. There's just a nice, healthy, steady rotation of big bodies down there that are athletic, that can get after the quarterback. And I haven't even mentioned a guy like Frank Clark on the outside that can get to the quarterback. Just imagine if Cliff Averill was healthy and not mulling retirement, what he would bring to the table. They're nasty up front. Just like we talked about the Eagles and how nasty they are up front, this Seahawks defense is just as nasty up front with all the bodies they can throw at you up front at the defensive tackle position, and moving around guys like Bennett and Clark just makes them more dangerous up front. Then Bobby Wagner is one of my favorite middle linebackers in this league to watch. I've said this a number of times. To me, everybody loves Luke Kuechly, and for good reason. He's a damn good linebacker. I love Ryan Shazier. To me, 1A, 1B for me, Shazier and Wagner. I mean, those two guys, for me, for my money, doesn't get much better than those guys in this league. I know people love Luke Kuechly, and he's a damn good linebacker, but these guys here, Shazier, Wagner, god damn, those guys they're what the middle linebacker position embodies, and what it means to be a middle linebacker and impact a game. No one does it at a higher clip than those three linebackers, Kuechly, Wagner, and Shazier, and you saw it again. Wagner was everywhere tonight, like he is every week. We can say the same thing about Bobby Wagner every week. Insert different week, insert different opponent. Same thing you can say about Wagner every week, though. He's everywhere. He reads screen, he blows up your play. He reads running back, handoff, he's in the backfield. He's tipping balls, he's sacking quarterbacks, he's picking off passes, he's forcing fumbles, he's creating safeties. Whatever needs to be done, Bobby Wagner's doing it. And as long as he's there, they're getting pressure up front. And I told you, I like Shaq Griffin. I'm not going to keep telling you the same stuff over and over again. This kid has star written all over him. I said, bring back Byron Maxwell. That's perfect. He knows the defense. He knows what's expected of him. He's going to come in. Yeah, he got beat a couple of times tonight. But he's going to come in and he'll be serviceable. As long as Shaq Griffin is healthy at the other cornerback spot, you will be fine. As long as Earl Thomas is in that secondary, you will survive. Will you thrive? I don't know, but you will survive. And so, Bradley McDougald, you can get by. It's not great, but you can get by. With the pressure up front, with Wagner, you can get by. KJ Wright, you can get by. I thought the defense was phenomenal tonight. There were some breakdowns late in the game, allowing Aguilar to get behind you a couple of times. Had the deep ball open down the field that Wentz missed, but look, this defense was phenomenal. Wentz didn't create any magical plays for the most part. You kept him in check. The Eagles, that run game that's been so prolific, gashing teams, not tonight. Not tonight. Nothing cheap, nothing deep for the most part. They earned everything that they got. And when opportunities presented themselves, like Wentz being a little sloppy with the football down by the goal line, give me those cookies. Reach in the cookie jar. Yum, yum, eat them up. Yum, yum, eat them. Give me them cookies, boy. Let me get those. Oh, it's the holiday season? You feel like sharing? Sharing is caring. Well, I don't mind if I do. Thank you. Appreciate it. They were on one tonight. They're a dangerous team. And so that looked like the Seahawks team that I expect to see come December, come January, when it means something. You saw the record. Best in the league in the month of December for a reason. They've been here before. They were outstanding tonight. They get to win 24-10, get to 8-4 in the season, and most importantly, stay a game within striking distance of the number one spot in the NFC West division, right behind the Los Angeles Rams. And I think they're going to win that division. And they needed to win this one tonight to stay within striking distance. And what do? Play arguably their best game of the season tonight. Conversely, you go to the Eagles. I thought it was a little bit of a flat game by them. I didn't know what to expect. I thought they were going to play better than what they showed tonight. I think they're a better team than what they showed tonight. But again, it speaks to the lack of experience, tough environment, on the road, late in the season, big game, Sunday night football, primetime television, big stage, bright lights. What are you going to do? Score 10 points, which is quite contrary to what you've done all season long. So that's a little alarming, okay? Granted, you were going in for points, probably a touchdown, and Wentz fumbles the ball. That's a game changer. It's a big, big play in this game. But that's nor here nor there. You've been creating those types of opportunities for yourself all year long, and someone did it to you. You needed to bounce back. It's not like that happened at the end of the game. That happened, second quarter? You had plenty of time to bounce back from that mistake. Plenty of time. And you just never were really able to overcome that mistake. And so, offensively, wasn't that impressed tonight. Alshon Jeffrey got a new deal, next to nothing. Like I've told you many a times in the past, never, ever trust a man with two first names. I don't trust him. I don't trust him at all. And he didn't do much of anything tonight. Zach Ertz went down, but that was late in the ball game. It didn't start. He didn't. Ertz. Yeah, he got Ertz late in the game, not early in the game. So that's not much of an excuse. Aguilar was the one guy that was doing work, and the run game was really non-existent. So credit the Seahawks defense for a lot of that. But you expect this Eagles offense, which has been dominant for much of the season, to come out and execute. And they didn't do that tonight. And so that was a little disappointing if you're an Eagles fan. From a defensive standpoint, I didn't think it was that terrible of a game. There was pressure on Wilson. He got hit a number of times. He was running around like a chicken with his head cut off like he always does. And so I thought the D-line did their job. I thought the D-line did their job for the most part. But I think there's a problem in the secondary. There were a number of penalties in this game, in the secondary for the Eagles. I think your secondary is where your biggest deficiency is. Teams can take advantage of it. And there were some opportunities for Seattle to take advantage of, and they did it tonight. The tight ends won some matchups. The receivers were able to get loose a couple of times. Doug Baldwin with a huge play for the touchdown. You got another big play by McKissick. These are all plays that you haven't given up in the past. The big catch and run by Mike Davis. The big catch on Baldwin when you sell out. And there's a tendency there with your defensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz, if you've ever played against Jim Schwartz, if you watch tape, you're going to get all-out pressure at least 3 times in any given part of the game. Mostly, once you get inside the 30-yard line, inside the 40-yard line, in a critical third down situation, you're going to get all-out pressure. Man-to-man across the board, zero coverage. He's dialing it up. He's coming with the kitchen sink. You got to be prepared for that. And you got to recognize when it's coming. They don't hide it. They don't disguise it in Philly. When they're coming with all-out pressure, you know they're coming with all-out pressure. Have a man beater ready. They had a man beater ready. And Russell Wilson, gorgeous throw, a win by the Angry Bird, Doug Baldwin, touchdown. You can get beaten in the secondary. Philadelphia can be beaten in the secondary. If there's one part of their defense, excuse me, that I am worried about, it's their secondary. If there's one part of their offense that I'm worried about, it's left tackle. We'll see what happens. It was an off night. I'm not going to kill him for that. But I'm telling you right now, off of what I saw tonight, I can't wait to see him next week versus the Rams. Because the Rams are way more explosive than Seattle is on offense. And even though they're just as young as you are, they're not the battle-tested, grizzled veteran squad that the Seahawks are. Been there, done that, been in this moment before. They're not that. They're just as talented, if not more talented, offensively and defensively. They got just as much talent as the Seattle Seahawks do. Alec Ogletree, Aaron Donald. That's another man with two first names that I simply just don't trust. He'll wreck your game. I don't trust him. Neither should you. It's a lot of those boys, man. You remember Connor Barwin? You should. He was on your squad last year. He's making noise over there with the Rams now. They got players, man. So that'll be interesting. That'll be a fun one next week, and I want to see how the Eagles respond to this loss as they dropped the 10-2, 9-game winning streak snapped. Now it's time to start a new streak, and for as good as you've played this season, none of that matters. You know why? Because the teams that are playing the best football at the end of the season are the ones that get hot and have a chance to make a run at the Super Bowl. That 9-game winning streak means nothing if you finish losing your last 3 out of 5 games. Nobody cares about your 9-game winning streak. You go into the postseason playing some iffy football. Lose your last 4 out of 5. Lose your last 3 out of 5. No one will be talking about the 9-game winning streak. Because when the playoffs start, guess what? Everybody's 0-0. Nobody cares you went 13-3. No one cares you went 12-4. All we care about is, hey, man, we're struggling down the stretch. Went from the number 1 seed in the NFC to the 3rd or 4th seed and went from a first round bye. Playoffs got to go through Philly in the NFC to, hey, you got to play in wild card weekend. You might get dusted in wild card weekend. NFC's tough. Throw the seeds out the window. From 1 to 6, anybody can get it. You're looking at a wild card in the NFC where one team for sure in the wild card is going to have 11 wins. Guaranteed 11. And you're looking at a possibility of 2 teams in the wild card having 11 wins. That's a possibility as well. The other wild card team that doesn't win 11, winning 10 for sure. Guaranteed. No one's getting in at 9 and 7. I can guarantee that. So, next week's going to be big for the Eagles. You thought this week was big just because we wanted to find out who the Eagles really were? Next week's going to be even bigger. Because now we know, okay, Eagles, young team, didn't play their best football. There's a different narrative now. Now you got to go on the road again, and you're not even going home. You're going to stay out west, and you're going to play the Rams next week on the road. And if you don't play well and you lose again, these are good teams. You haven't beat many of them this year. That's been the knock. That was the one thing. Everybody said, man, the Eagles are good. 9 straight games. But, that was the one but. Haven't played many good teams. I said, look, reminds me of the Panthers a couple of years ago. Everybody was killing them for not playing the best competition, but they were winning games. And when you win games, you gain confidence. And when you gain confidence, you win games. It's a vicious, flavor-delicious cycle that the Eagles were starting to perform very well. And when you put that cycle in motion and it goes over and over again, you win, you gain more confidence, you gain more confidence, you win. It begets that cycle over and over again. Boy, I said the Eagles are starting to look dangerous. But I said, this is going to be a big test. They win this game tonight. And that lets me know they've gained enough confidence that it doesn't matter. Venue, team, none of that. Their confidence supersedes all of that. No, not quite. Not there yet. A win next week will let me know they weren't shaken by the loss. They're staying the course. They're not shaken, and they're good enough to beat a quality opponent on the road. We're going to find out next week. That's a big one now. So, in any event, Seahawks get the win. Let's get to some comments. And what was a hell of a football game. All right. So, let's get all the way to the top, or as far as it will let me go. Cloud says, man, this sucks. They showed up, and we didn't do too many bad play calls, and Carson Wentz wasn't having his best game. We'll be fine, though. We'll see. We will see if they bounce back. That's why I said I want to see. And me and Art talked last week. Archangel said, hey, and I said it. Art said, hey, man, I piggyback on that. This time of the year, experience is vital. Cats generally don't just show up to the party and get it done. You got to take your lumps, man. This time of the year, it's for the big boys. Them young boys that show up, they think they know what's good. Normally, the veteran teams say, hey, man, you ain't never done this before. You don't know what it takes. You don't know what it's like. What you going to have to do. Sacrifices that have to be made to get this chip. You don't know nothing about that. You a year or two away. And the Eagles look like a team that's a year or two away from knowing what it takes to get that chip. So we're going to find out. Vincent Cole says, hey, Lou, I know we gave up some big plays and stuff, but man, Shaq Griffin looking good. I think Sherman is having some special connections with him. I told y'all against Arizona, I want to say it was the Arizona game on a Thursday. I said, man, Shaq Griffin looks good. It might have been the week prior to that. I said, man, I'm going to tell you right now, this Shaq Griffin kid looks damn good, man. Pete, and shout out to your GM for identifying some talent, man. Those boys, they get it right a lot of times. We give Seattle a lot of credit for some of the undrafted stuff that they do, later round stuff that they do, like Chris Carson would have been another late round hit. But this one, a lot of people questioned this pick. Schneider and Pete, we was like, hey, man, y'all might be overdoing it here, man. Like, y'all, we giving y'all a lot of credit. But y'all might be overstepping y'all boundaries with this one. Because, like I said, I think Shaq Griffin was a late 2. If he wasn't a late 2, he was an early 3. And we were like, man, this early for this dude? Nah, man, there's still some other corners on the board that's probably better. And sure enough, man, they got it right. Black Al B says, what it do, bruh? What it do? We're going to talk about your Vikings. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about your Vikings next after this breakdown. I've already watched the Vikings game. I've already watched the Raiders game. I've already watched the Panthers game. And I've already watched the Patriots game. I'm breaking all them joints down tonight. So it's going to be Louie late night tonight. So don't y'all go nowhere after this breakdown. We're going to break it all down. Brandon Sullivan says, I knew Seahawks had this game at home. It's prime time. It just felt like a W. Guys have been talking with you about stepped up as well. Frank Clark, J.D. McKissick, Mike Davis, Ethan Posick. I thought all of those guys stepped up. Like you said, you've been talking about those guys. And we've had discussions about McKissick and Clark and Davis. And you specifically singled out Ethan Posick as a guy that you thought needed to step up, and he has. So we'll see. But this was a big win for the Seahawks. From a confidence boost standpoint, sometimes as a team, you need to go out and beat a team that is perceived to be better than you for you to realize we still got it. And this was one of those games, and they took care of that tonight. Cloud says, we need that win next week. With that said, I'm positive we will. We'll see. It's a big one next week. I told you, I am equally as amped for the next week game against the Rams as I was for this game, because that's going to go a long way in telling me what the psyche of this Eagles team is and are they ready. Next week's game is going to say a lot. Dark Sealer 1995 says the Saints are the class of the NFC. I see them going to the Super Bowl if Lattimore stays healthy. It's amazing how people waffle every week on certain teams. The Saints last week, oh, they're this, they're that when they lose. I'm not saying you were one of those people, Dark Sealer. I'm just saying the narrative, it's a week-to-week league. I said all that to say that it's a week-to-week league. Eagles win next week, and a lot of the questions that we have about them, we won't have them next week. Saints lose last week, get dominated by the Rams. I told you the Saints isn't this, they're not that. They win this week, and all of a sudden now, Rams the class of the NFC. I don't know about that, but we'll see. John Perez says, Wentz versus Goff next week. Going to be a fun, high-scoring game. And it's amazing because, remember, last year, picks 1 and 2 right there. And there was a debate going on, and after Goff looked like trash last year and Wentz looked legit, oh, man, Rams got it wrong. And I'm not going to sit here and act as if I was a Goff guy, because I wasn't. I was a Wentz guy, and I still am. But I told you guys what McVay was going to do for Jared Goff. And so, does it shock me? Doesn't amaze me? I'm just excited to see 2 young quarterbacks squaring off. And they'll always, just like Mariota and Winston, these 2 will always be joined at the hip. So this is going to be the first of many clashes. If these two teams are as good because of their young quarterbacks, if these two quarterbacks are as good as we think, and these two young teams are as good as we think, these two will be squaring off for many years to come, and we'll always be talking about one going one and the other going two. And just like Brady and Manning, they'll have a running tab against each other. Well, Goff is 7-6 versus Carson Wentz. Wentz is 6-7 versus Jared Goff. He's 3-0 at home versus Jared Goff. We're gonna see that. This is gonna be the first of many matches between these two teams, and those two quarterbacks specifically. Going to be intriguing to see how that game turns out. Andrew Kim says, December Joe is here. LOL. I try to tell y'all, watch out for the Ravens. Y'all make fun of y'all boy. Y'all know that's my boy Joe. I ain't going to tell y'all but one time. Vincent Cole says, dude, tonight the defense did their job. Clark, Sheldon Richardson, Mike Bennett did a great job, but Bobby Wagner was such a beast. Look, man, I've been telling everybody that will listen about Bobby Wagner. I think and I said it at the top of the show, the Sheldon Richardson deal, so underrated. And both teams won that trade. It was a great trade for both teams because Jermaine Kearse is balling with the Jets. Like, it was a great equal value trade for both teams. I think Frank Clark, the light is coming on for him. He's starting to get it. He's turning into that dynamic edge rusher that we all thought he could be coming out of Michigan. And Bennett is just Bennett. I mean, he's a problem every week. So this defense, I thought they were outstanding in this game. Had some plays in there that you would like to have back, but all in all, I thought they did their job and they gave the offense every opportunity to win this football game, and that's what they did. Cloud says, a lot of bad ref calls to missed challenges from Doug. Not taking anything from the Seahawks. Hate them, though, because ever since that Dream Team shit, they've had our number. They're just a dangerous team. And I feel like if this game were in Philadelphia, maybe the outcome might have been different. But in Seattle, it just seems like they have your number. So we'll see. Brandon Sullivan says, in week 7 or 8, I asked you if Wilson had a shot at MVP. I saw something in the way he was playing. You did. And I couldn't remember who it was, if it were you or Vincent Cole. I knew it was one of those Seahawks fans that said, hey, man, what you think about Russell Wilson winning the MVP? And I said, nah. I said, he's playing good football, but it's kind of going under the radar because the record isn't as great. But I said, more importantly, Wentz is tearing it up, and that's all anybody's talking about. And he's had high-profile victories on national television for everybody to see. I think the game Wilson turned in tonight, coupled with him playing against Wentz, helps his cause because for everyone that didn't know what he was doing, this game kind of highlighted. And they made sure that they put up some graphics to back up the play that he's had this season. But that being said, Wentz and the record and how well he's playing and everything to go along with the magical plays he's had, whether it's the Redskins game or some of these Houdini-like plays he's had this year, he's going to win the MVP in my mind. But Wilson giving it a late run, man. He's got a shot. I just don't see it happening. John Perez says, off subject, Bears got eliminated, and reports earlier today indicate that Ben McAdoo could be fired sometime tomorrow. They should have fired Ben McAdoo 3 weeks ago when they lost to the 49ers right before the bye. That was the time to do it. Now that he's stirred up this whole Eli controversy and the backlash from it with the fans and the media, that's why they're going to fire him. They lose today against the Raiders. There are a number of coaches that, if they make it through the season, won't make it through the offseason. I think the Bears with John Fox, which I hate to see Fox go through this, but there's just no talent out there. And he's not making it better with some of the decisions that he's making. With their loss to the 49ers today, he's probably going to get fired. McAdoo's going to get fired. You look around the league, Tampa Bay's coach could get fired. They lost a heartbreaker today. That one hurt me because I picked Tampa Bay to win. And I thought they were going to win that game, and they blew it. So I could easily see him getting canned. There are a number of teams that could have a head coaching vacancy come next year. So I think the Bears and the Giants are at the top of that list, I think, of teams that are probably going to fire their coach. Ricky L says, why the F did Doug not take shots deep before we were down by 2 touchdowns? And how come every time Seattle has a primetime home game, the refs always help them? This wasn't a refs issue game. Let me start by addressing that. This wasn't a, oh man, we got screwed by the refs, that's why we lost. Nah, that wasn't this type of game. To your other point, taking shots down the field, easier said than done. Wentz was under siege for much of the night. All right. Even when he had time, the pocket wasn't totally clean. He was worried about, let me readjust, let me step up, let me shuffle to the left or slide to the right. He was never fully comfortable. Give credit to that defensive line of the Seahawks for running twists and stunts, a lot of TE games, Pirates and things of that nature, but then turning around and just winning one-on-one individual matchups. Frank Clark was whooping a Big V's ass over there on that left side. When you turn around, Bennett was doing some good things to the inside. Even when they didn't win, Wentz still had to move off of his spot, take his eyes temporarily off of down the field and come down to see the rush and elude it, and then try to take his eyes back down the field. And when you're constantly doing that, it's hard to take shots down the field. So it sounds good in theory, but it's hard to execute down the field when you've got a lot of trash and things going on around you right there in the pocket. It's tough to take shots down the field. Cloud says, that's a good point. We haven't been there yet. I think we can get a playoff game, though. As far as the O-line goes, I don't think Johnson is a left tackle in this league. However, I do agree about Vitae. Yeah, I mean, and Lane may not be a left tackle. And I'm not saying he is, but he may be an upgrade over Vitae at left tackle, which is the more pressing issue because you can't see your blind side if you're a quarterback. But if you feel confident that Lane is not a left tackle at all whatsoever, and he's 1,000% better at right tackle, which is probably the case, then no need in making two positions worse by making a switch. Just deal with the left tackle, whether you got a chip or help out. And Wentz is a magician, just like Wilson is. So even when there's a little heat on his backside, generally he feels that and is able to escape. So we'll see. Dark Sealer says, I want to get your opinion on something. I believe that the NFL tells the refs to favor teams on calls to keep games competitive between two good teams to help the ratings. Thoughts? I don't buy that. Because we've seen a game between two teams get out of hand and somebody get their ass whooped plenty of times. You know, the NFL does want what brand? And this isn't NFL specific. What sports brand doesn't want competitive games? What league, what association have you seen that wants a blowout between two good teams that everybody's anticipating? When the Thunder and the Thunder and the Warriors are playing, when it's Westbrook versus Durant again, you don't want 123-97 with the Warriors resting their starters in the fourth quarter. That's not great television. You want compelling television. So yes, you want the game to be competitive, but at the same time, you're not going to jeopardize the integrity of the game to do so. So I don't agree with that. But I mean, look, there's always going to be conspiracy theorists out there. So I don't buy into that though. The Black L.A.B says, my suspicions were confirmed when the Eagles play a team that's worth a damn. They shrivel up like swimming in a pool in December. Hashtag, they are who we thought they were. I'm not going to take it that far yet, Black L.A.B, but I was anxious to see what they would do in an environment, in a game like this. So far, not the greatest results. They've got a chance to bounce back next week and prove that this was just a little bit of an aberration and not the norm for them playing against good teams. So I'm just as excited to see them next week as I am or was this week. John Perez says, what's wrong with the damn Broncos? Oh, they just stink. They don't have a quarterback. That's the problem. They threw the quarterback came in through another pick six today. And so when you're dealing with that kind of incompetency at the quarterback position, and now it's spread to the defense because now they can't stop the run anymore. Remember, they were the number one run defense going into the Eagles game about 3 weeks ago. Eagles shredded them on the ground. They got shredded on the ground last week. Patriots shredded them on the ground a month ago. And now they got shredded on the ground again this week by the Miami Dolphins, who weren't doing anything to anybody on the ground or in the air or none of that stuff. So, yeah. Brandon Sullivan says, damn straight, Lou. Thomas and Wagner are the two most important pieces on D. Shaq, Bradley, and Coleman are going to step up, I feel. I feel like that. No, I feel like as long as they've got Thomas and Wagner on the field, they're going to find a way to get it done defensively. They're going to give their team a chance. Ricky L says, Panthers are bums now. They're not bums. No, they're not a bum. But I'll tell you this. They're the sketchiest 8-win team this season. Because I don't love their offense. I feel bad for Cam because the weaponry or the lack thereof on offense, scary. I saw Burnson on the field so many times getting targeted today. That's a problem. I'm never supposed to see him on the field other than special teams. And this man was getting some critical looks on third downs, crucial third downs in the game. And I'm like, what? But that's the state of their offense. When you want to trade away, and I'm not going to make this, I said I wasn't going to do this, but when I see the bums that they have on the field on offense around Cam, it's starting to remind me of what the Eagles did to Donovan McNabb once upon a time. Well, it's McNabb, and he can take a bum and make him good, so we don't have to go out and get him some real targets. We gonna have Freddie, what is hell, the people's champ, Freddie, shit, y'all know who I'm talking about. I can see his damn face. Can't think of his damn last name, but y'all know what I'm talking about. We're going to put Todd Pinkston's out there. I used to call him Todd Stinkston. Todd Pinkston's out there and the James Thrashes of the world around Donovan McNabb. Man, come on, give me a break. They're doing the same thing to Cam now. It's Devin Funchess, and with no Olsen at tight end, it's Devin Funchess and a group of bums, and then Christian McCaffrey. Figure it out, Cam. Figure it out. It's a shame. And yes, I think their defense is overrated. Let's keep going, though. Freddie Mitchell. Before I get to somebody who tells me. Freddie goddamn Mitchell was his name. Anyway, back to the comments. Cloud says, let's also use the playoff argument for the Vikings and Rams. Both also very young and haven't been there. Actually, that's not the case for the Vikings. I use the same thing for the Rams already. I've already said that. But the Vikings, you can't use that for them. They've already been there. The nucleus of their football team, the only player that hasn't is Case Keenum. And we're going to talk about Case Keenum and all of that stuff a little bit later on when we get to them. But as far as their defense, they've been here. They gutted out a win in the Blair Walsh-Smith game. You know, they've been to the playoffs. They understand what it's going to take. They won a division before. All right, they're battle tested. They've had a home playoff game. So they know what it takes. They've taken some lumps. So they've been there. So you can't necessarily apply that to the Vikings, but you can to the Rams. Cloud says, yeah, but we can beat the Cowboys with Zeke. Zeke didn't have good games against us. Morris does, though. We'll see. You know, that's too far down the road for you to be paying attention to right now. You got the Rams next week. You shouldn't be worrying about the Cowboys in Week 17. You got some big games coming up, so you got to take care of the one in front of you first. Reby says, not impressed with this first road game. Yes, it felt like a big ass whooping. I do believe we will bounce back or at least be closer fighting next week. If all people, she said, and if all people, Byron Maxwell with that last interception, she said, good grief. Don't it feel like that sometimes when a dude that you cut loose who didn't perform for you goes somewhere else and makes a play against you? Like, come on, really, bro? What was that when you were here? I knew a lot of Eagles fans that said the same thing about the Marcus kid y'all drafted a couple of years ago in the first round that did nothing. Then he goes to Seattle and he gets a sack for them. And they was like, really? Bro, you going to get a sack for them? You couldn't get a sack for us? So, yeah, you know how it is sometimes, man. Feel you, Reby. I feel you. Not an impressive first game against a tough team, but we'll see. The Black LB says, all the Vikings did was take the top third down conversion team in the league and limit them to 1 of 10 on third down. Hashtag we the best. Hashtag they hate us because they ate us. Hashtag skull. Cloud says, we have to grow from this. Doug is going to have to get Selleck on the left side to help Vitae. And my boy Barnett got a sack tonight. Still mad, though. Ricky L says, Doug coach scared and it showed in the score. I still don't think Doug Peterson is that great of a head coach. I think he's an okay coach. He's a solid coach. I don't think he's a great coach. But talent can overcome that. You got enough talent on the football field. And Wentz, I think, makes up for a lot of the deficiencies of Doug Peterson as a coach. The Mister says, Lou, do you think the speed of Seattle may have caught Philly off guard? It shouldn't have, but it may have. Sometimes you can get lulled to sleep with the level of competition that you play. And that's why I wanted to see how they performed in this game, because when your last four opponents are San Francisco, Denver, Dallas with no Zeke Elliott, and Chicago, you're talking about the bottom of the barrel in the league. The 49ers got their second win of the season today. The Broncos haven't won a game since October. They on a 8-game losing streak. The Cowboys haven't been the same since Zeke got suspended, and the Bears are one of the worst teams in the league. They're a 2-win team, 3-win team. So, yeah, they may have been lulled to sleep, and then Seattle shows up, and all of a sudden you watch them on tape, but you haven't faced that kind of team speed since the Panthers, maybe. And so it showed. Yeah, maybe they might have been, but that's not an excuse for me. They just were out executed in this game, and they made mistakes that they haven't made this season. Wentz hasn't fumbled going into the end zone this season. Hasn't thrown granted, it's late, and you need something big quick. But he hasn't thrown up a pick to Byron, Maxwell in the end zone. That's hasn't been his thing this year. He hasn't missed guys down the field open for a touchdown. It's not what he's done this year. They haven't made those types of mistakes. They've been the beneficiary of mistakes like that, not the other way around. So they didn't get the job done. Dark Sealer 1995 says, Andy Reid needs to go. What has he done in his career besides a loss in the Super Bowl? He can't manage his weight, let alone a football team. He never helps take a team to the next step. First of all, don't come after the man's weight. It's not funny. Second of all, Andy Reid is a good coach. He just is terrible at game management. But to take it a step further, their defense is horrible. This isn't an Andy Reid problem necessarily. Their defense is bad in Kansas City. It is. I told you that earlier this year. I told you that in week 4. I said, if you don't maximize this season after the 4-0 start at the time, they were 4-0, they would ultimately go on to be 5-0 before losing to the Steelers. I said, if you don't maximize this start to the season, it'll be because your defense stinks. They gave up 38 points to the Jets today. They took a 31-30 lead with 6 minutes to go, 7 minutes to go in that game, 8 minutes to go in that game, and let the Jets march right down the field. And then when they got in the red zone, held them out of the end zone, did something stupid, had a personal foul penalty that instead of a field goal turned into another fresh set of downs. Then had a holding penalty on a 3rd down, which gave them another fresh set of downs, and then finally gave up the touchdown. Then gave up a 2-point conversion after a holding penalty, after they didn't convert the 2-point conversion. This is all a defense that has struggled this season. And this was the perfect way to cap off their struggles defensively with a stinker in New York versus the Jets, giving up 38. Vincent Coe says, how is Malik McDowell? I heard news that he doesn't even, he's not even able to play until next season. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about him, but they're not missing him right now. They're not missing him right now. They're playing so well, they're not missing him. I haven't heard anything about Malik McDowell. Reeby says, felt like we didn't play our normal aggressive game. Scared on 4th and 1 earlier in the game, then forced to go for it on 4th and 3. Scared challenge that or not. She says, scared challenge. That's not that or not going from getting the go from upstairs in time. Yeah, okay, I got what you're saying. She said a scared challenge and then not getting the go from upstairs on the other one. I just felt like the second challenge, he didn't do it because of the failed first challenge. And so that kind of made him gun shy. But it's easy to be aggressive when you're playing the Bears. Like, I remember last week, you went for it on like 4th and 3 from like the 30-yard line on like the first or second possession of the game. It's easy to be over-aggressive versus the Chicago Bears because, it's the Bears. What are they going to do? It's not a lot harder to be aggressive when you're playing against a team like Seattle on the road. So was he a little bit more conservative? Sure he was. But also, it was some things that happened throughout the course of the game that made him a little bit more conservative. So, Patrick Avellino says, let's hear it for the Legion of Whom. That's what they're looking like these days, but those boys getting it done. Reby also says, not been many deep passes down the field till late. Felt conservative, unconventional fumble by Wentz, and at the worst time, killed any momentum we were building up. Got to be better next week. I agree with every single point you just made. I talked about with another comment, I think it was Ricky L, who said that it didn't take many shots down the field. And again, like I said earlier, I felt like a lot of the short passes and the lack of deep shots down the field came from the pressure that was up front. Wentz, like I said, was under siege for much of the game. So it's hard to take shots down the field when you're constantly trying to dodge guys in the pocket, not really getting a chance to set your feet and drive the football down the field. John Perez says, was Gronk out of line for the Tre'Davious White hit? Yep, he was. Reese says, I want to ask you a question in all seriousness. Are the Cleveland Browns winning the game this season? I'm leaning towards no. Their best chance to win a game this year will be week 17 if the Steelers don't need the game. If the Steelers need that game for home field advantage, which they probably will against the Patriots, they probably won't win a game this season, unfortunately. They've had opportunities. I just don't see it happening. Reby says, Ertz wasn't much of a factor before he got hurt. That pass rush was potent. Russell scrambling and finding a man wide open, shaking my head. I was more nervous of the Rams. Damn it. You overlooked a dangerous Seahawks team. You overlooked them, and you had to pay for it. Cloud says, Barwin is going to miss next week's game. They got a lot of good players on that side of the football. It would have been nice to see him go up against his ex-team, but injuries will do that to you. Let's see. All right. Where are we at? All right, here we go. Reese says, Peyton Barber had 150 yards all-purpose. We have both been lobbying for him to get more touches. Look, Ree, I do this, man. This is what I do for a living. I'm a professional football watcher. I know when I see a guy with talent that's being held back due to lack of playing time. Did we not both say Peyton Barber needs more? I've talked to a number of Bucs fans, and it's not like they got Adrian Peterson in his prime or Todd Gurley or Le'Veon Bell in front of him, holding him back from hitting the field. Okay? It's goddamn Sims and Doug Martin. What are we doing here? Put Peyton Barber in the game and let him get some touches, man. John Niner says, what are your thoughts on Jimmy G? I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't watched that game yet, so gotta watch it. I'll definitely, you'll see, because I'll break that game down tomorrow for sure. Vegeta's Dark Side says, Sherman expendable, Chancellor. You can't get rid of guys until you find their replacements first. So, with Sherman, maybe, because I think you have a new number one guy out there in Shaq. So, maybe. I'm not willing to go there yet, but maybe. Chancellor, I've always felt like, of the Legion of Boom, he was the one guy that you could probably say, we can do without you. Yeah, he's an enforcer. Yeah, it's a lot better knowing he's on the field. But if you said which one of the Legion of Boom members is the guy that we don't necessarily need, I tell you it was Chancellor all along. Even when he was crying he wanted a new deal and everybody was saying, hey, trade him. I was like, hey, trade him. Get something. But I don't know about Sherman being expendable quite yet. We'll see. Black LB says, I guess the refs had blinders on to the ejections today. Gronk with the lame hit and Peters out and KC throwing the flag. I'll actually watch the Peters thing because we watched the end of the Jets-Chiefs game. And that was ridiculous. And the fact that he just assumed he got thrown out. The man left the game, hadn't been thrown out. And because he wasn't thrown out, went to the locker room. Everybody just assumed he was getting out. And then Andy Reid was like, did he get thrown out? The official was like, nah, we didn't throw him out. And so somebody went and got him. This man came back with no socks on. Like, bruh, what are we doing here, man? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Black Albie says, I'm just on my Belichick shit. We're on to Carolina. We're on to Carolina. Dark Sealer 1995 says, the Browns might be the first team since the Lions to have a perfect record and not make the playoffs. Oh, no. Even Santa Claus can't save these clowns. They may not win a game, man. Yeah, seriously. Captain Spartan 04 says, December Joe is back. I guess you're talking about Joe Montana and the Masterpiece commercial. Wow. Cap taking a low blow there. He says, I know you're not talking about that purple Joe in Baltimore. Wow. That's real. Damn, that was savage right there. I love it, though. X Final Gaming says, how do you see the Eagles when comparing them to other NFC teams after this? Hasn't changed my view on them, except that we were asking this question, were we not? How good were they going to fare against good football teams? We still are asking the same question. Next week will give us another indication of, are they ready yet? After this game, you're more inclined to say, probably not. But it's 1 week. It's one game. Talk to me after next week's game. We may have a totally different outlook on the Philadelphia Eagles. But as far as other teams, I feel like the NFC is so strong this year. Top to bottom, 1 through 6, whoever makes it into the postseason, anybody can get beat any week in any venue at any time. The NFC is that strong. Anybody that gets in the NFC can represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's how strong the NFC is this year. Carolina can get in, get to the Super Bowl. New Orleans can get in, get to the Super Bowl. Atlanta can get in, get to the Super Bowl. Minnesota is getting in. They can play the Super Bowl, the first team to ever play a home game in the Super Bowl. Philadelphia can get in, get to the Super Bowl. Seattle can get in, get to the Super Bowl. Green Bay could get in, get to the Super Bowl. They're not going to get in, but they can get in. Anybody get in, get hot. NFC is just ridiculous. Brandon Sullivan says, oh shit, you are doing vids all night? I'll be here for them. Yeah, refs don't always help us. We are the most penalized team this year. I never like blaming a win or a loss on the refs. Sometimes the refs can have an impact on the outcome of a game, but I didn't feel like this was one of them. Black LB says, why are the pundits slurping A-Rod and gaming? Dude's not a god. They're done, he says. He said, I have the Browns getting their first win versus them. Don't do them like that, man. Don't do that. Come on. You really think the Browns are going to beat them? I don't think so. We'll see. It can happen. But John Perez says, I'm hearing that 8 to 10 teams could have coaching and GM changes by the end of the year. The last time we had as many was in 2012 when 7 coaches were let go with 5 GMs. Usually, coaches go, but the GMs don't. I think we could easily see 3 or 4 GMs getting canned this year. Like, I could see Rick Smith in Houston getting canned. I could see Jerry Reese in New York with the Giants getting his walking papers. I don't know if any more GMs are going to go. It's hard to say. I tell you, Ryan Pace in Chicago could be in some trouble. He has not drafted well. So he could be on the hot seat in Chicago. But hard to really say. You know, Elway's not going anywhere in Denver. I don't see too many GMs, but head coaches for sure. We'll see. Jason Light, you really think he's going to get fired in Tampa? I doubt it. I mean, so, you know, Cincinnati's going to have a new coach. They don't have a GM. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Reese says, save us, Chucky. Hashtag Gruden 2018. Hashtag homecoming. I don't think he's leaving a booth for y'all, man. I just don't, but we'll see. Soundwave92 says, this win over the Eagles put Russell in the MVP conversation. That's a question he's asking. Yes, it does. I don't think he's going to win it, but it definitely puts him squarely in that discussion with Carson Wentz and Tom Brady. He said, I had him as a dark horse candidate for a while now. Yeah, he's in there. Ricky L says Freddie Mitchell. Reby says Freddie Mitchell. Yeah, I got Mitchell before I got to y'all's comment. I wanted that one bad because I was like, it's killing my brain. I'm glad I got it. Cloud says, I 100% agree with the weapons argument. Now it's not as bad for Wentz as it was for McNabb, but when you say Alshon isn't a number one receiver, dudes come with pitchforks and torches. He's not. He's not like a top notch. He's a number one, but he's at the low end of the number one totem pole. When you start talking number one receivers, he's not a serious game changer. He's not a guy you game plan to stop. That's what you do for number ones. Antonio Brown, A.J. Green, Julio Jones, hell, Stephon Diggs, and Adam Thielen. I take either one of those as number one receivers over Alshon Jeffrey. You know, you talk number one receiver in this league, I'm looking at DeAndre Hopkins out in Houston. One of those type of guys that changes games. I don't see Alshon Jeffrey as a complimentary wide receiver to me. If you want him to be a number one, fine. He's a low-end number one in this league. If there are 16 number ones in this league, legitimate number one options, he's like number 14, 15, or 16 on that list. He's not in the top 10, top 12 for me. That's how I feel about Alshon Jeffrey. Cloud says, I was talking about Case Keenum specifically when I said the Vikings. Yeah, I'd agree with that assessment. But if you're going to say that, then you got to specifically say Case Keenum. You can't say Vikings because that team is battle-tested. So you can't say Vikings. If you're specifically talking about the quarterback position, then you got to say that. Captain Spartan 04 says, to be fair, what type of receiver complements Funches, McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, and Greg Olsen? Curtis is supposed to be the speedy one. Well, he's out for the season with an ankle injury, and Greg Olsen is out with the foot injury. So you just named 4 guys, 2 of which might not play for the rest of the season, one that's definitely not playing for the rest of the season, and then one's a running back, and the other guy is, much like Alshon Jeffrey, a complimentary receiver. But if you want to put him in as a number one, he's low-end number one. Funches is more like a grade A number 2. So what does Cam Newton really have? I'm just asking. Don't kill me. I'm just a messenger. Brandon Sullivan says, you see Peters throw the flag in the stands? Effing gold. Also, that late hit by Gronk went for the kill. Yeah, Peters is a head case. I told everybody that would listen, this guy's crazy. And he showed it again today. Just lost his top. I mean, went bananas. He's going to get fined. And then I was like, well, what's the referee going to do for a flag the rest of the game? Throw his hat? That's got to suck. Because, you know, referees aren't coming with backup flags. My sister's like, he's got to have a backup flag, right? No. Who thinks they're going to lose their flag? It's not like that big-ass yellow flag is going to get lost. You see my flag? I threw it around the 20 somewhere. I can't find it. They're not going to lose their flag. Who's thinking they're going to need to come with a backup flag? Probably got to throw his hat for the rest of the game. And the Gronk thing was just unnecessary. Dudes get hurt like that, man. Gronk was out of line for that. Marvelous Track says, do you think the Rams have to change their defensive game plan knowing how hard it was for Philly to run the ball against the Seahawks? Not necessarily. The Seahawks the Seahawks did a good job of stopping the run. And, if you want to stop the Eagles' offense, yeah, it starts with stopping the run, but more importantly, it's about bottling up Carson Wentz. And you have enough team speed. The Rams have enough team speed to do that. The teams that he's going to struggle with, any mobile quarterback, the teams that they struggle with are the ones that have enough speed laterally. Like the reason Carson Wentz is always going to kick the Redskins' ass is because we don't have enough team speed to keep him in the pocket and corral him. Until the Redskins draft more guys with speed, it's going to be a problem dealing with Carson Wentz for the next decade. Because he's going to have his way outflanking outside linebackers and edge rushers. He's going to get away from the pressure, and he's going to be able to escape and buy enough time to make throws down the field. Whereas you got an athletic front like the Rams do, linebackers that can run like Ogletree can, and Barron can, and Aaron Donald along the defensive line, and Brockers and all those first-round picks and guys that can run. He's not running around circles and making plays. Those guys are tracking his ass down and making him throw it away, or he's taking sacks. So while you want to stop the run first, which is always the goal going into any game, doesn't matter who you're playing, the ultimate goal is, hey, we got to make sure Carson Wentz isn't comfortable and he's not extending plays and being the MVP that he's been all season long. Dominic Garland says, you should react to the NFL highlights. I've seen highlight videos on YouTube. They're starting to become all the rage, I see. It's niche-y, you know. It's catching on, but I'm not a niche guy, but maybe I need to be. I don't know. Maybe that's part of my problem is I don't succumb to trends. I don't know. John Perez says, what do you think of Darrelle Revis in his first game with the Chiefs? He looked rusty, but he just hasn't played for. He's Darrelle Revis, and he's old as hell. Like, I'm not expecting much from Revis at this point of his career. So I haven't seen him, though, to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and act as if I was watching him. But I'm not expecting much out of him. All right. What time is it? I feel like we've been here forever. It's 1 o'clock. All right. I'm going to take about 5 more minutes of questions, and then we'll get out of here. FBG Tony says, thoughts on AFC West? Who wins it? I say Oakland. How about you? I'm going with the Chargers. I just think they're the best team in that division. Now, I will say this. The Raiders have a very favorable schedule. And they've already beaten the Chiefs once, unlike the Chargers, who haven't beaten the Chiefs at all. They've lost to them once. So the Raiders have the inside track. I just don't feel like the Raiders are that good. I watched the Giants game today. They struggled with the Giants, with Geno Smith. It took some big plays by the Raiders to win that game. A couple of fumbles by Geno, a big run by Lynch, a big catch by Cordero Patterson. It took a lot of big plays for the Raiders to eke out a 24-14 victory. Wasn't impressed. So, but I say that every week, and the Raiders found. I wasn't impressed with their win against the Broncos last week. Doesn't matter. They won. So they're 6-6. Everybody in that division is 6-6. We'll see what happens. Brandon Sullivan says Cam's big hits are great, but doesn't Thomas do that more? That's why I also wanted to trade him when he was holding out. I feel like Thomas brings an edge. Cam just brings that intimidation factor. You know, he's big, he's hulking, he plays well around the line of scrimmage, which you can't afford to have Earl Thomas around the line of scrimmage because he's too valuable away from the line of scrimmage. So they love what Cam brings in that regard. But I thought the best time to trade him was when his value was still high, because I think his value was starting to trend downward. When he was holding out, I thought you could really fleece some dumb team that was like, oh, Cam Chancellor, big name, and get a lot for him and move on. But, yeah, they decided to hold on to him. Reese says, I may vomit uncontrollably if the Falcons go to the Super Bowl again. Well, you might want to hit the pause on that vomit, man, because you might have to go. Because I think even though they lost today, that's still a damn good football team, man. I still believe in the Falcons. I've told you that all year long. I believe in the Falcons. Reese says, I hate Mike Smith. Hey, you gotta ease up on Mike Smith, man. Vegeta's Dark Side says, today was a good day for the Vikings. Yes, it was. We're going to talk about the Vikings because Vikings fans are going to kill me. Still not sold on the Vikings, man. I know they're like, what the hell more we got to do? We're going to talk about that game next, so don't y'all go anywhere. Soundwave92 says, who's the bigger head case, Marcus Peters or Aqib Talib? Oh, without a doubt, it's Marcus Peters. Aqib Talib, there's a line that he does draw. He's crazy and he does some outlandish things. But there's a line that he draws where you say, okay, he probably doesn't care about getting ejected, but, you know, he does care about, you know, costing his team at times. Marcus Peters don't give a damn. He'll cost his team 15. He don't care about getting fined. He don't care about getting ejected out of games. He just, there's a moment with him. Like with Aqib Talib, he'll lose it because of another player. Marcus Peters will lose it because of a ref. You know, like, it doesn't take much to get in his head. And when you get into his head, there's a temporary moment of insanity with him. With Aqib Talib, you just like, man, he crazy, but it's because he's gotten mad enough to go crazy. Like, he got to a boiling point and then he just went and snapped. With Marcus Peters, he'll be fine 1 second and then he'll just snap. He's just like, bro, where did that come from? He's crazy. He's effing crazy. Patrick Avellino says, please put the Angry Bird at number 17, please, just to piss him off and make sure to call him pedestrian. He didn't get the credit he deserves. I ranked him on my, I did a list of most underrated players in the league, underrated duos, and he was on that list. And he just doesn't get enough credit. He just doesn't. It's a shame, but he doesn't. But he feeds off of that, so. FBG Tony says, what's your NFC and AFC championship prediction? Who plays in each of those? Well, I already told you a long time ago, in the AFC, unless somebody comes in there and upsets the whole thing, it's Pittsburgh and New England in the AFC championship game, and I'm not moving off of that. It could get blown up, though. I could see Jacksonville or Pittsburgh or Baltimore catching somebody on a bad Saturday and getting them. New England included in that. But in the NFC, I can't tell you. I just can't. I need to see the seedings, who's got the buys, who ends up where, who wins what division. I just can't. I can't do it right now. John Perez says, should Vance Joseph be blamed for the Broncos' struggles? I asked because a lot of Broncos fans are souring on him. Vance Joseph looks lost right now, but to defend him just a bit, the quarterback position is so bad in Denver right now, and the defense is starting to become bad because of how bad the quarterback position is. It's starting to affect the defense now. But are there times where Vance Joseph looks lost, like he doesn't have any control of his team and doesn't know what the hell's going on or off the football field? Sure it does. So he looks like he's over his head at times. Got to give the man an opportunity. And much like I've said with Todd Bowles with the Jets, you got to give him a quarterback. You got to give him a chance. When Todd Bowles had adequate quarterbacking 2 years ago with Ryan Fitzpatrick, they won 10 games. Sure, they missed the playoffs because of the rule in the NFL rule book that states that any team starting Josh McCown is not allowed to make the playoffs. But they still went 10-6 and had a good team. This year, he's getting another veteran quarterback to play well, and they're 5-7. You got to give Vance Joseph a chance by getting him a quarterback in there that's serviceable, at least serviceable. They stink at quarterback. Captain Spartan 04 says, you have Sewell Cravens and Preston Smith. How do your Redskins not have speed? In case you haven't noticed, Sewell Cravens hasn't played a down for the Redskins this year as he quit football. And Preston Smith, not that great of an athlete. So, again, don't know what Redskins defense you watching. If you would have said, you guys have Zach Brown, okay, yeah, he's a great athlete. Best athlete we've had in D.C. at the linebacker position since LeVar Arrington. But that's it. We don't have a lot of... Swearinger has upgraded the amount of team speed on defense as well. But that's it. We're still slow on defense. All right. That's it. It's 1:30. Let's get out of here. So that's going to do it. Great win by the Seahawks. I think it was a statement game for them. A disappointing outcome for the Eagles, but they've got a chance to bounce back next week on the road against the Rams. So I'm anxious to see that. And I still think the Seahawks are going to win the division. I've been saying that all season long, and this is a game that speaks towards that. They've got the Rams once more, and that may decide the division. If they can get the season sweep over the Rams, I think they're going to win the division. And that's why I think they've got a great shot, because I think they can sweep the Rams. That's going to be intriguing football when that takes place. But the Rams have a big one coming up next week versus these same Eagles in week number 14 should be a hell of a lot of fun. In any event, that's going to do it for your man Louie T here on Sunday Night Football overtime. Seahawks get the win 24-10 over the Philadelphia Eagles, snapping the Eagles' 9-game winning streak as they drop to 10-2 on the season. Seahawks improved to 8-4 and now put themselves in a position to strike in the NFC West division with this win. And who knows, maybe the Eagles do a little dirty work for the Seahawks next week by taking down the Rams. Could happen. Big game, big win for the Seahawks. It's going to do it for your man Louie T. I'll see you next time. I've got some lockdown coverages coming your way. Got to get some work done. So we'll probably be here for quite a while. And I'll see you with those lockdown coverages. So don't you go anywhere. Lockdown coverage coming at you here in a second. See you soon.
This is